At moments throughout this season so far, there have definitely been questions on whether or not this Rangers team will end up being sellers or buyers. But at the end of the day, from what we've seen so far in the move of going after a guy like JT Miller and all the reports that we have seen, it definitely seems like the Rangers are more than likely going to be buyers opposed to being sellers. So in today's video, we're going to take a look at a bit of an update here and some kind of news from Larry Brooks, a very reputable New York Rangers kind of insider. So we'll take a look at what he had to say, as he does give some pretty good insight on what the Rangers' plan could be for this upcoming trade deadline. So starting off here and taking a look at what the article had to say, and it begins by saying, meanwhile, the New York Rangers' reacquisition of JT Miller has worked out well thus far. The 31-year-old center has 4 points in his first 3 games with the Blueshirts. Rangers general manager Chris Drury could have another move up his sleeve by the trade deadline. The New York Post's Larry Brooks pointed out they have over $16 million in projected deadline cap space. And after the Rangers did make that big move for JT, and yes, this season has been very up and down, and I don't think the Rangers really need to kind of force another trade here and really kind of make this big push for this season to be a cup contender. But I don't think it's the worst idea if the Rangers are going to make the kind of right move and kind of a smart move for maybe one that kind of works out well for not just this season, but also kind of the longer term future. I definitely think it does make a lot of sense for the Rangers to go out there, and if they do see that player they really want to have for not just this season, but the longer term future, then go out there and maybe trade for them. And if you have to extend them because they're an upcoming, unrestricted free agent, and you do what the Vancouver Canucks did with Marcus Pettersson after using the first round pick that they got in the trade, with us, from obviously getting or trading away JT Miller. They used that first round pick that they got from the Rangers, flipped it over right away pretty much over to the Pittsburgh Penguins not too long after that trade happened, and they ended up getting back Marcus Pettersson, a pending UFA, and they have already given him a pretty big extension as well. And I think it's honestly a fairly reasonable one as well, and definitely one that could work out quite well for their team long term. It could be a fairly team friendly one. So I don't mind it at all with the Rangers kind of cap space situation and how it does kind of really open up over the next few seasons here with the cap skyrocketing up. You're going to have some other bigger contracts coming off the books, Panarin one that happens, in the near future as well. We'll have to wait and see kind of what happens with him, but obviously his contract, over $11 million there, that's a pretty massive deal. Once that comes off the books there, whether he does come back or not, it's not going to be, I would imagine, at that rate. So you can probably maybe get him on a bit of a discount there. Hopefully, maybe he takes a team-friendly one. We'll have to wait and see, but obviously, you're going to save a bit there. So I just think with the way the cap's going with the Rangers, I think they're in a fine spot to go out there, make a big trade, extend a guy, or if someone's on a decent-sized contract already and they're a good player, you make that trade for him. I definitely think it is okay, but obviously, you've already seen this team kind of go out there and extend a guy like a Will Borgen. Obviously, we've seen a big extension to Igor. We've seen a big extension to Lafreniere. We've seen, obviously, another pretty massive deal kind of brought onto the team here with JT Miller. So they've definitely added on a lot of money, but I do think there is still room to go out there and make another big move if they see fit. But definitely you have to keep in mind of the future as well, because I don't think this team is in a spot to really go fully all in at this exact moment. And next in the article, they end up saying Brooks speculated Drury could make moves, quote, of the short-term variety that would be determined by the club's performance before the upcoming Four Nations face-off and the lead up to the trade deadline on February 3rd. Remy Masty cited Brooks suggesting the Rangers could seek a third-line center depending on the cost. He doesn't see them doing many rental deals just to qualify for the final wildcard spot. And as of this moment, they're not really just going for that final wildcard spot. I do think there is a chance where it is definitely possible where we do see the Rangers, end up somehow maybe jumping a team like the Devils, possibly for that kind of third Metropolitan Division kind of spot there. And the Rangers kind of jump into one of those 3 division spots, and the Devils possibly end up kind of falling down maybe outside of the playoffs, where we end up seeing 2 Atlantic teams kind of get, those 2 kind of wildcard spots, and the Rangers with their point total just kind of jump up above those 2 teams, and we see only 3 kind of teams from the Metro make the playoffs. That is a possibility. So I do think there's a chance where we end up seeing, the Rangers either make a wild card spot or end up kind of jumping into that Metro. And we could end up seeing kind of 5 teams from the Atlantic. It definitely is possible as of this moment with the way things are going that we do see 5 teams from the Atlantic. So we could only see 3 from the Rangers, and the Rangers could still kind of jump in there and be kick up the Devils, which is currently the team as they're recording this video in that 3rd spot in the Metropolitan Division. So we'll have to wait and see what does happen, but the Rangers are definitely still in this race. And the Rangers only have 1 game before the upcoming 4 Nations face-off break, which the tournament does begin on Wednesday, February 12th. That night there, that's when the first game happens, and the Rangers have 1 game before that little break there where obviously it's a decent-sized little break, so Chris Drury in the front office can obviously talk things over and kind of talk about their plan for the upcoming trade deadline and kind of the moves that they possibly want to make, and there definitely could be trades happening around that kind of period, obviously during the break or around it, so we'll have to wait and see, but I do think it's interesting, though, that after the Rangers and NHL players kind of come back, after the 4 Nations face-off break, up until the trade deadline, before that, the Rangers will have 7 games to play. And I definitely would imagine that whatever does happen in those 7 games is going to have a major impact on what this team decides to do. And maybe it doesn't, but I'm just guessing that if the team does go, let's say, 2-5 in those 7, and the Rangers are quite a few points back of a spot, and there's 5 teams in between them or 4 teams in between them, and those 2 kind of wildcard spots, and they're quite a ways back. Maybe they do just kind of hold steady with where they're at right now and maybe make kind of one selling move even and move away off of a guy like Riley Smith and they get a 3rd round pick back possibly. I don't know exactly. I mean, I'm just kind of talking, kind of speculating here, but obviously I just think that is kind of an option where the Rangers, maybe play bad over that time there. And obviously I'm not hoping for that, but if they do, maybe we don't see another kind of big buying move. Maybe we do see a decent sized one if the Rangers end up, winning 5 of those 7 games there and they win this one before the break as well. So we'll have to wait and see what happens, but I do imagine those 8 games there, the one before and the 7 after, are going to have a pretty major impact on what the Rangers decide to do for this upcoming trade deadline. And like I said, I don't think they need to really kind of push a bunch of their assets in here at this deadline and go after another big player, especially a rental. And that's the big thing, and one that obviously he's kind of reporting that they probably won't do, which is definitely a good sign, but obviously I just really hope they don't because, in my opinion, that would really be a stupid decision with where this team's at. As of this moment, they're not one piece away, so going after a big-name rental just would not be a good idea unless they are going to be re-signing them, which, a team like Vancouver did. Obviously, the Rangers kind of did that already with Will Borgen, so maybe we see that again with a different player. That is definitely a possibility. And the last part of this article, they end up saying, Brennan Othmann is one player Brooks doesn't want the Rangers to use as trade bait at the deadline. He believes peddling the promising 22-year-old winger for a playoff rental player would be a mistake. And I did kind of talk about that in yesterday's video, and I'll kind of agree with what I said yesterday, and that is the fact that trading away a high-tier asset like a Brennan Othmann, like a Gabe Perreault, like a first-round pick or one of those kind of high-tier assets, it just is not the smart decision to trade away, one of those kind of high-tier assets for rental players where this team is at right now. I think the JT Miller trade wasn't a bad one at all. I think with where the cap's going, with his play style and kind of what the Rangers needed and what he's kind of already brought so far, I definitely think it's looking like a great trade already, and it's one that I think could develop into a great one long-term. And maybe Filipino ends up having a great long career with the Canucks there. That first-round pick becomes something decent for the Pittsburgh Penguins, which wouldn't be great for us, obviously, but that's kind of through the trade tree now. And, Victor Mancini, we'll see what happens there, but I think the piece the Rangers got back alongside JT Miller and kind of more talking about the prospect Jackson Dorrington, he's looking decent, still a young player, obviously, still a young prospect. Maybe we'll see him kind of get some pro hockey experience with the kind of AHL Hartford Wolfpack at the end of his kind of university season, possibly. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see, but I'd imagine next season he's in Hartford there, getting some game time, and maybe he is one of those kind of guys who gets the call up at one moment, kind of like a guy like Victor Mancini did, although he did begin the season with the Rangers, but maybe he's a guy who, ends up really impressing and gets a couple chances at the NHL level next season or possibly at some point in the future. But I just think in general, those kind of moves there where you're going after a guy like that with a long-term contract who's around for the future, and JT Miller is a true core piece of this long-term future of the Rangers team. I mean, that's what the Rangers are trying to do now. They're trying to go away from, the core of Panarin, Kreider, Zibanejad, kind of those main guys. They're trying to look more towards guys like Trocheck, JT Miller, Lafreniere, Will Cooley, Adam Fox, those kind of guys. Igor Sturkin, obviously, for both kind of parts of it, you could say. But you get what I'm saying there. those are the kind of guys who we're trying to look more towards now for the future of this team. Guys like JT Miller. And that is a perfect example of trading away high tier asset. And I think it being a very smart and good trade. That first round pick, I think trading that in a deal is not bad at all. But if you're going to give out a first round pick or a Brennan Othman or a Gabe Perreault and you're going after a rental, that's where I have a problem with that. And I don't think that is the right decision with where this team is at in a couple seasons, or maybe even next season. Maybe the Rangers are looking like an absolutely elite team and they are looking like a much better constructed roster, and then they're truly kind of maybe one piece off where the team is at, and you want to go out there and trade away that first round pick and a good prospect and a player to go out there and get that superstar guy who could really make this team, that much better and really kind of push them over, possibly winning that cup, then that's one thing. But obviously, we're a ways away from that right now. This team is not one piece away. They could make the playoffs and, make an upset happen in the first round. That's definitely a possibility with a guy like Igor Shesterkin and some of the players that this team does have. But I think overall, definitely don't go out there and make a massive trade for rental. If it's a small kind of trade for rental or even a decent sized one, but at least you have a big kind of intention on possibly re-sign that player, I think that can make a bit of sense there. But other than that, making some kind of smart trades that really kind of have the sight more on the future as well is kind of what I think this team should be doing, in my opinion, at this upcoming trade deadline. Anyways, that's going to do it for today's video. If you have enjoyed, definitely hit that like and subscribe button for daily New York Rangers content. And also, definitely don't forget to comment down below your thoughts on this upcoming trade deadline for the New York Rangers. What players do you want to see them target? And what are your thoughts on this news from Larry Brooks and kind of his thoughts and kind of what could happen for the Rangers and what their plan could possibly be for this upcoming trade deadline, which definitely is a very important one for this team's future as well. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you next one. Bye.